victory and the agony of defeat.
Great ball around the corner, Penasini. He beats them all. Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle. Sharks coming through. None of them can hold this.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone listening to this episode of the Tip Sheet podcast with a very horsey host here in John, also known as 4020. The injury toll doesn't quite get another one, big fella. I'm still in action, barely. Though in doubt for Sunday right now, a bit like Will Penasini, subject to a fitness test on game day. But we persevere, and unfortunately it has otherwise interrupted what was going to be an awesome Junior Reps preview podcast that would have featured Steve Georgalis if I'd been a bit healthier. But I didn't want to get Steve exposed to whatever I've got, so we persevere with the round one finals or week one finals preview by ourselves. And before we do talk football, mate, and before I do start hacking up a cough, I'll throw it over to you and check out how you're doing. Hopefully a little bit better than me.
Yeah. By the way, are we going to see your face today? You're keeping
yeah. You can see my it's not too sweaty now, but it's been a bit rough. So I've had.
Yeah. No, I'm not seeing it on the screen.
Yeah. I can remedy that one. Let me put the virtual camera on and patch myself in. There we go. I'll turn it on for you, big fella.
Yeah. Look, we appreciate Steve was all lined up to talk to us. Then we've looked to do it remotely, but we had a few gremlins. So apologies to Steve for that. We're going to catch up with him in the second week of the finals, when of course we will have won every game this weekend. So it'll be business as usual in the next week. John, yeah, not doing too bad. It's again. It's a shortened week because of when the last match was on with the Eels on Monday, and means that we're trying to cram in a lot of recording and writing and publishing and all that sort of stuff this week at the moment. So first of all, a shout out to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and of course Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels, but also the great benefactors of junior rugby league in the Parramatta district, the organisation who, through their generosity of over $350,000 every year, makes rugby league more affordable for young players and their families. So great appreciation to Parramatta Leagues Club for that support. We've got a full docket of games at Ringrose Park on Saturday. It's an unusual order. But
you've got
some
clarity on that.
Yeah. Just bear with me too, John, because I'm gonna go to my phone here to read out the explanation of why the order is the way that it is. I think we start off with one of the boys' games at 10 o'clock, don't we?
Tarsha Gale at 10 o'clock.
Tarsha Gale at 10 o'clock. Then I think it's one of the
SG Ball, Lisa Fiola,
the SG Ball, yeah, Lisa Fiola, Harold Matt. So it's all mixed up. So here's the reason you get an unusual order like that and a mix. The New South Wales Rugby League try their best to keep clubs at the same ground and follow each other. Hence, the Eels are playing on the same ground on Saturday, and the Bulldogs are playing in the first two games. So that could keep the Bulldogs together because they're the Eels' opponents. The Eels are all able to play at the same ground, but then the Bulldogs games are organised as the first two games. Females use the same dressing room, hence they don't play after each other. Right, so it just gives that little bit of timing so the girls can come off,
set up
at the end of the game, freshen up, and then the next girls' team can come on, and they're not competing for time in that. So that's another reason you get that. Travelling teams play in the afternoon, hence the Raiders are being given the latest game. And it may well be as well that we might get Eric Tweedale used for the games next week. So hopefully all the Eels teams get through, and we might have teams playing there next week. I think if the girls win, they get the week off anyway. So if the boys
upper bracket,
yeah. So if the boys win, that hopefully will mean then that they'll both be at that ground next Saturday. So the girls obviously higher placed and will qualify for that week off. So anyway, that's a bit of an explanation for that. But apart from that, John, we're just going to go in order of, not in the match order, but we're going to go the girls' grades first and then the boys' grades. So if I can get you to read out the Lisa Fiola team list, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so this one is the third game chronologically on Saturday, Craig. If you're watching the game either live, following the blog, or on New South Wales Rugby League TV / Bar TV, sorry. Eels minor premiers taking on the fourth place Central Coast Roosters, who they met quite recently, actually. But Eels look like this. It's Tegan Nicholas at fullback. Havana Cook and Georgia Wanzi will run the left edge at wing and centre. Hine Rakiti and Ruby Inosi Tupolotu will be at centre and wing on the right, respectively. Riley Cash partners Sienna Manuo in the halves, so no Tamiko with us again, Craig. I'm not sure if you've got any feedback on what's happening with Tamiko, but Sienna's done a great job working as the deputy to Tamiko in the halves there. In the front row, it's Halo Talangi and Talili Tuavaiti as your bookends. Amani Cook is the dummy half. Sarah Al-Madine and Kaizen Morgan Pritchard are your edge forwards. No one named at lock forward because Isabella Bell was, I believe, contesting some sort of charge from the game last week. I'm not sure if there's been an update there.
No, she's out, John.
Okay, so there'll be at least one change to the team. Someone's got to come into lock forward then. But on the bench, it's Zara Kuri, Chawi Noble, Zara Tautai, Chelsea Falls, and then the two reserves are Yasmin Kiros Mapusua and Kavinya O'Callaghan Ohio. I would imagine Kavinya probably comes into the team, Craig. And I don't know who starts at lock, but you would start one middle there, obviously. And I imagine Kavinya either starts or goes to the bench. So that's how the Eels line up there, Craig. And, unfortunately, across this grade and the Harold Mats, there's been some disruption. We'll talk about the Mats, obviously, in their preview separately. But suspensions and judiciary, match review and judiciary interactions have led the Eels a little bit understrength in these two grades, which means it's going to be a bit of a challenge. These girls get two bites of the cherry, obviously. Harold Mats, it's sudden death, so that's a separate issue for them. But Eels finished this season undefeated. They met the Central Coast Roosters. Was it last round, Craig, or the penultimate round? I'm just trying to.
No, that was the penultimate round, and they, I think from memory, they put on 30 points when the Central Coast Roosters, was that the Tarsha Gale?
No, this was a tight game. It was 22-14.
Yeah, it was. So I'm thinking of the game with the Indigenous Academy. With that one, that was a tighter game. But look, from memory,
mind you, it was 5 tries to 3, 8 points difference.
That's what I was going to say. From memory, I think the score line didn't indicate the strength of the Eels' performance. I would say dominance, but I don't want to overplay that when you've got that same opponent coming up this week, because as you said, that we've got a few team changes, key player out in Isabella Bell. It is a quality opponent because it's a top 4 clash. You mentioned before, John, about the team being undefeated, and it's testimony to the consistency of performance. The other thing too that should not be forgotten, and this is particularly true with looking at the absence of Isabella Bell, is like all of the academy teams, there was rotation of the lineups from about halfway through the competition through to virtually the final round. All the players in the squad were given opportunity to play and to qualify for selection in finals football. You have to play a minimum of, I think it's 2 games during the season to qualify to participate in finals football. So the Eels, I think they really explored the depth of their squad, and the standard of performance really didn't drop. So there were games when you had Isabella Bell, 1 or 2 games where she didn't play anyway. The Eels didn't lose a beat, and that's not a reflection on being able to play without. It's not a reflection in a negative way on Isabella, because she is an outstanding player, absolutely outstanding. But it's a measure of I think what the coach has achieved with the rest of the squad, that it's not reliant on one player. And for that reason, I think the girls can be confident. They should go in with confidence. We never talk about overconfidence. The girls should go in with confidence that they can get the job done in this game. And I think it's also has to be, as I said, a congratulations to the coach for getting such a strong job done. And James Reed is the coach there. He's very experienced in the Parramatta Junior Rugby League. I think he's from Parramatta originally as a coach, done a lot of coaching over there. So I guess, John, the question would be whether the Eels adopt a similar game plan to what they did against the Central Coast Roosters just a couple of weeks ago, or whether the coach tries to mix it up a little bit.
A lot of sort of smoke and mirrors, ducks and drakes there, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do the two coaches evaluate that result, and do the Central Coast Roosters look at what the Eels did and look to then employ countermeasures this week based on what they saw in round 8, and do the Eels try and adjust ahead of that? So another player we didn't mention that was out, Craig, which is a significant out too off the interchange, is Taylor Miga, who's been excellent through the middle, big powerful prop forward who's been really strong in the post-contact stakes. But in saying that, I thought the two Zaras have been very good in their later end or back end of the season this year off the interchange. Zara Kuri, Z-A-R-A, and Zara Tautai, Z-H-R-A. Tautai. Not sure if that's a relation to Vai Tautai, but Zara.
That'd be interesting, John, if she was, because we like seeing those familial connections, don't we, with the players? So look, what can you say? Like the spine has done an outstanding job.
Yes.
In this,
yeah.
and I think, although she's missing from this game, you'd include Isabella Bell in the spine because of the way that she plays.
It's a 5-player spine. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. But in saying she's missing, you've still got 4 other members of that spine. I really think Tegan Nicholas has improved
massively. She's come on so strong.
Massive. Oh yeah. She has such confidence about her play, and whenever she gets involved in the attack, you sort of sense that something's going to happen. Not only that, she always seems to be bobbing up in support, as all good fullbacks should. So
very good right to left cutout pass as well.
Yeah. And then you've got like a back line that you talked about the power that's there in the forwards. That back line has been able to capitalise on it. I mean, it's Rugby League 101. The forwards lay the platform, the backs capitalise on it. And
two very accomplished finishers in Cook and Osi Tupulotu on either side, and then two very good enabling centres in Wanzi and Rakiti, who can both take a run and break a tackle themselves, but are very selfless when it comes to taking the best play to the player outside. So there's a lot of good combinations there.
Yeah, it's look, given the track record of the season and the fact that the Eels played so well through the rotating roster period, I've got to back them. I say that with an asterisk because finals football is like a new competition starting all over again. So there is an element where you go, okay, you have to put the regular rounds behind you now. They're done and dusted. It's a whole new competition. But you've also got to look at what form was on the board during those regular rounds, and you don't finish the season undefeated by fluke.
No.
And
And further to that, Craig, they have the benefit, and it's a rare benefit in junior reps because it's an age grade competition where you tend to max out your players at under 17s, under 19s. Not always, but the Eels happen to have some players that are in their second year, which means they were part of the big premiership push last year. So you look at players like Georgia Wanzi and Hine Rakiti were part of that back line. In the forward pack, Sarah Almadine and Kaiser Morgan Pritchard, I think. Well, Morgan Pritchard definitely got some time there.
Yeah, I think Sarah might be one of the younger ones.
Yeah. Sorry, I have a whinging dog in my background that's telling me off. So I just got to let him know that we're recording. But yeah, I agree, Craig. Eels favoured here. And I think, look, favoured by some margin. But like you said, the finals are a different beast. And it's not sudden death this week, but the stakes are very high. So which team can get out to a good start and then just maintain their composure will go a long way towards winning here. Obviously, Eels missing a couple of key players in Withers and Bell. But like I said, Sienna Manua has done such a great job deputising for Tamika for the season when she's been out, or for Riley Cash at times as well when she's been out. And then they'll find someone to do Bell's job and try and recreate her in the aggregate. That'll be on the entire pack to help uplift each other.
Yes. So, John, that takes us now to, again, we're not going in chronological order. We're just going through in the female teams, the male team. So it brings us to the Tarsha Gale, which I think you said is the first cab off the rank.
Correct.
On Saturday at Ringrose Park, 10 a.m. start.
Yes, this is a 10 a.m. start. So Eels taking on the Bulldogs in this grade. So a team that they met last week. So he talked about the Central Coast Roosters and the Eels maybe having a bit of game of chess and checkers there in terms of strategy. Be equally the case here for the Tarsha Gale, where both teams dominated 30 minutes last week, but it was the Eels that came home on top. And they're looking to obviously go one better and deeper into the finals now. And at fullback, it'll be Ire Sevilla. You got Zion Liga and Freedom Crichton Rapati, who scored the incredible match winner last week on the wings. Billy Va'a continues to alternate between centre and back row as her coach needs, and she finds herself out in the centre free quarter line this week. She's opposite of Jessamine Alawali. In the halves, you've got Samuel Lee Gunn to Awai and Aaliyah Sufan. Front row, it's the big and powerful Taylor Falanico with the industrious Alana O'Loughlin as the two props. Ava Jones, the dummy half. Tia Matthews is back, and she'll start on the edge opposite of Fontaine Tafua, with Kylia Gray, rounding out the scrum at lock forward. Bailey Marchong is the second half of that dummy half battery, so she works alongside Ava Jones, obviously. Then you got Shai Tokulich, Leonia Vey, and Mitzi Cairns on the bench. Sualo Lafonga, Olivia Saba, and Jada Cook, the extended bench there for Walker and the Tarsha Gale. And yeah, taking on the team that it was a bit of a slobber knocker last week, Craig. There was a few errors, but it was a tough physical game. And Eels started slow but finished strong, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do this week, given that they're backing up against the opponent.
John, you got to love the wrestling terminology, the slobber knocker, for that contest, because it was, I guess, the excitement that was there in that game would have been something to behold. So I noticed you just put the earplugs back in, John. I was just referring to being able to hear a bit of wrestling terminology about the game, slobber knocker.
Yeah.
So, John, the Tarsha Gale team has now made it 7 wins in a row, and it's interesting that they're taking on the same team that they had that absolute. I'll use another terminology he likes to use, a barn burner of a game, the 2 weeks in a row. And it'll be interesting to see, would the result have hardened the resolve of the Bulldogs? So they're like, well, we're not going to let this happen 2 weeks in a row. Or would it have given the Eels incredible confidence that against a quality team like the Bulldogs, they could give away such a start and still come home as strongly as what they did? Because it was quite the turnaround, that second half. The the other thing too is that maybe there were some lessons that were learned in that contest that I think you mentioned it with regard to the Lisa Fiola game as well, that maybe there was something that was learned that will result in a change of tactics come this week's return clash. So, John, I think this Tarsha Gale team, have built so consistently into their season because early on they had that first round loss to the West Tigers, who we've seen have only just scraped into the top 8 in the competition. They then their defence looked strong really for most of the season, but it wasn't happening in attack to start the year, and that was quite deliberate from Coach Ryan Walker, because he wanted to get that defence set. That was going to be the foundation stone of what they achieved this season, and from there, it's been a build-up week on week on week with the attack, and to put on the tries that they ultimately did against such a strong team in the second half last week.
Yeah, finishing strong was the key there, I think, Craig.
Yeah, and that comes on the back of some big score lines that they had posted in the weeks before. So the attack is really coming together, and why wouldn't it? You look at the team that they've named, and it's like you just go from fullback all the way through. You're looking at strike players all the way through. Like we know that this is a side which brings physicality in defence, but when you're talking about attack, and just as I said, I could literally rattle off every single player, but in particular, Ore Sevilla has been like, she's just gone to another level throughout this competition, and this is her junior year,
first year
of Tarsha Gale as well. Imagine having a girls team at this level, having the likes of Liga and Crichton Rapati on the wings. Like, they are two dynamic runners of the football, and it shouldn't go unnoticed that those opportunities come their way from the work that happens inside them with the respective centres. They're Invar and Aloali'i. It's just been, and I like the way that Semi Lee Gun Tuai has forced her way into the team, because we had all those rotations, and now she's locked in that 5/8 role. And we always knew that Aaliyah Sufaj, like, she's probably had that more consistency of selection in that
calm, steady presence at halfback.
Yeah. But I think having the 5/8 position settled as well has really helped the team in attack. And by the way, my apologies for any poor pronunciation of the names. John's far better at that aspect than me.
Never 100% either, by the way. So
But mate, what about the work that's done by the pack? Valanika, Jones, O'Loughlin, Matthews, Tafunga, Gray. Tafunga made her NRLW debut last year.
Yeah.
Gray was outstanding at the Harvey Norman women's competition level last year.
Correct.
And the power that those forwards bring, and then you've got the two dummy halves that the coach is able to swap,
and sometimes use at the same time as well.
The bench, yeah. being able to swap the dummy halves has been
Ace up the sleeve.
Yeah, the teams must be so envious that the Eels have that capacity to have such strike dummy halves in their team. It's just it's Bailey Marchong and Arva Jones. And what about the impact that's come from the interchange this year, John? Because the girls there have brought brutality when they've come on. Some of the hits in defence have been phenomenal. I wouldn't want to get in my prime. I wouldn't have wanted to be hit.
No, Vay's a bit of an enforcer off the interchange. She doesn't mind using some granite shoulders in defence. So she's been very good in that regard. And you've had Mitzi Cairns, who we believe is a first-year Gale player that's really come on back into the season and forced her way onto the bench. And then Shia Thokolic is just a really stable presence in the middle alongside Vay in that rotation. So, yeah, look, the interchange has been great, Craig. It's a very well-balanced team. Just trying to think where you'd sort of point out. Look, I suppose it's funny because you talk about how big and powerful our forwards are, but by contrast, the Bulldogs pack's even bigger. Like that is really how they go about constructing their team in the junior reps, is having a dominant physical force of critical massive bodies in the middle. You saw it in Tarsha Gale, you saw it in Lisa Fiola. And that's where the Eels got it all wrong last week in the first half, was playing into the teeth of that defence, cheap turnovers, and letting the Bulldogs really, to use a Wally Lewisism, dictate the terms there. But in the second half, the forward pack stayed equally involved, but they started to be a little bit more, dynamic, agile, changing the point of attack, moving their opponents around. And that obviously, it's a combined arms thing. It's also the clever kicking of players like the two dummy halves and Aliyah Sufan there that helps. But the forwards been a bit more, savvy and cunning about how they went about it. Helped a lot in the second half, where it introduced that fatigue against that big Bulldogs pack, and then they took control of the game.
Yeah, and that was the secret to success last year, John.
Yes.
That introduction when they took on the Bulldogs, because it was always a case of how is any team going to get past the Bulldogs? Never mind just the Eels. It was how was any team going to get past the Bulldogs? And the answer was introduce fatigue. Because the Bulldogs at no point last season, and obviously very rarely this season, have had to go to the levels of fatigue that would start to bring their game apart. And it's what the Eels managed last year. They've managed it again in that second half last week. It's the key to the game this week again. Move their big forwards, their big players around, introduce fatigue. The strike's there from the Eels in attack. We know that when they are focused, working as a unit, that the girls, that our forwards can match them for power and aggression. Even if they're not quite as big, they can match them for power and aggression. And I think maybe more than match them when it comes to skill.
Yep.
So looking forward to that game. Tipping, of course, an Eels win. But then that now takes us to the Harold Matthews contest. So can you take us through that game, John?
This is sudden death in the Harold Matthews, Craig. It is 5v8. Parramatta Eels holding the high C, but it doesn't mean much outside of home field advantage this week. And it's a team that's got a few players out this week. We mentioned the MRC and the judiciary being a factor, and the Eels are missing a number of players here. We go through their roster at fullback. There is a familiar face, Liam Martin. You got Elijah Al-Hazim and William Mamiya Epe on the wings, Tyler Lama and Leonard Salter in the centres. So no Larima Siusiu. Tyler Lama comes in, I believe, to replace Larima there. In the halves, you've got Salatia Lutamati working alongside Caleb Liata'a. In the front row, it's Dion Haynes, Flynn Manua, and Curtis Brown, Jake Capavilla, Tyson Poletu, and he's named lock Hayden Bell, but I'll let you explain what's happening there shortly, Craig. On the interchange, it's Khan Jackson, Christopher Swali'i, Matthias Tualoa, and then Nixon O'Connor. Extended roster, Levi Perrott and Danny Abu Hamid. And I believe there's going to be at least one change in this team, Craig. But the Eels take on the Raiders, and the Raiders sport a 4-4 record. The Parramatta's 6-2 record. So Parramatta a bit better in the regular season, but again, it's a whole new ball game in the postseason. And the Eels, they're down a few key players there, so this has probably leveled the playing field a fair bit against the visiting Canberra team.
Yeah, well, I think as soon as you see a couple of key players missing, then you know that it's a tougher ask. John, the Eels last week with key players delivered a convincing 26-4 victory over the same team. And even at 26-4, I think the score flattered the Dogs. Such was the Eels' dominance in that game. Actually, John, I got to tell the truth, I'm not up to it. What is the news on Hayden Bell? Because I'm not aware of what's happening with Hayden.
Oh, did I get my wires crossed? I thought you told me that Bell was facing judiciary, but it would have been his sister that was facing judiciary.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so no, there isn't any issue of Hayden Bell then. That's a big in, then, if that's the case.
I was thinking, hang on, I'm not aware of anything that's happening with Hayden.
I've got a bit of a brain fog going down. I can't remember if you had said Hayden Bell to me or Isabella Bell. Not Lisa.
I think you probably got a message just with Bell facing the judiciary.
Yeah.
So I should know better when there's siblings to be very specific about that.
The good news is, ladies and gents, that they've got their talismanic lock forward in at least one grade here. One of the Bells set to play this week. That is a big in, if that's the case. That makes you feel a lot better about, obviously they've lost some strike because everyone that's seen Harold Matts this year has been impressive for him at CUCU. The junior year players really impressed out left centre, but equally, Winston Tahi's forced his way into the starting team, and Spencer Sorensen's earned plenty of praise from you this year, Craig. Obviously me too when I've been calling the games. You've just happened to call a few more Harold Matts games this year. And he's been very sharp out of dummy half. So Eels are missing some legitimate factors here, but with Hayden Bell back in the fold, or never left the fold really, I do feel a bit better about this matchup here.
I think Sorensen's got a 2-week suspension from recollection. So I'll double check that, and also I got an update as well. Tamika Withers is injured, so not sure if she'll be right by next week. So we'll wait and see.
Jeez, it's been rough on the young playmakers for the Eels in the junior reps recently.
It seems to be a club curse, the injuries at the moment, but as I'm going to write an article on this because there was some very, very astute words that were shared with me from coaching staff, and it really has to do about the mindset of focusing on what you do have or who you do have rather than what you don't, because you miss out on what is the potential for happening if you're just worried about things that you miss out on. So in this case, it's players, and the Eels still have plenty of talent that's available. And just on that note, John, last week Tyler Lama was outstanding at centre. Prior to that, I thought Leonard Salter had a really good season. And was possibly going to be unlucky at missing out on a spot, given the form of Lama and of course CUCU. But I don't think that Leonard is going to let the team down in any way, shape, or form.
No aspersions been cast on the form of either Salter or Lama there. You mentioned it with the Lisa Fiola, Craig, that injury, rotation, suspension, all those factors have given different players opportunities at different times this year, and they've all stepped up. And Salter and Lama are no different in that regard. They're not going to let the team down on the weekend.
I've had a lot of people message me asking questions too about Liam Martin, and just for my opinion of him. And I said, well, look, you don't want to put pressure on players or make predictions about what the future holds for them. But what I like about Liam Martin is the way that he attacks the game. Like he's someone who looks to make things happen. Even down to like when the kicks are put through to him, he's looking
He'll
to
get
attack
downhill and attack the ball.
Yeah, and I think that's a great quality in a fullback because it starts each set in such a positive manner off the kick. So, Dion Haynes, I think he faced the judiciary or he had a charge last week. I think he just got a warning from what I was told. So he's a big inclusion. He could have been, close to being an out. Got a try last week, I think, off the top of my head, where he just powered his way over the line.
Bit of a neon Dion put his name up on lights for the Eels this week, eh?
Yeah. But look, although I've sung the praises of Sorensen, Flynn Manua's done a good job when he's been in the team. And again, this comes down to the rotating teams that the Eels have, that policy they've employed this year of giving the full depth of the squad opportunity to impress and opportunity to qualify for finals football. So although, again, we're missing a couple of key players, I think the experience of the season has said that on the whole, the team hasn't skipped a beat when there's been changes. Now, this team had 2 losses during the season. Both of those were heartbreak losses. Both of those were like literally last 30-second losses. So in those games, they had control.
I know the Steelers were 0-3 at the time. They ended up being the 4th place Steelers and the 3rd place Rabbitohs. So it was a case of 2 pretty highly seeded opponents at the time that barely got the wood on the Eels with some wicked luck. Like the Steelers game was absurd with the ball, bounce of the ball, and even the Souths game with that finish where the Eels executed the field goal drill perfectly, but gave away. I will say it's a fluke try, Craig, because that winger was millimetres from going into touch and managed to get the ball away to where it bounced. It dribbled perfectly to the one South Sydney guy in the vicinity. So, yeah, like they've been right there, and they've had to persevere through a bit of heartbreak. And that sort of thing can be character building if you can build. I know it sounds stupid, but if you can build from it, because some teams will flatline and other teams will lift. And I thought the Eels lifted after those 2 heartbreakers. I thought they actually got better as the season went to its conclusion, or the regular season went to its conclusion.
Yeah. So just going through a couple of other players as well. I thought Curtis Brown, this is his 2nd year. He came in partway through the season last year in Harold Matts as a young 16-year-old, more than held his own, and he's a really tough customer. Like, he just plays like he's like this raw-boned.
Yeah, a bit of a throwback, uncompromising middle.
Yeah. So there's a lot to like. There's a lot to like about him. Jake Capavilla, man, he's running some great lines. Like, he's had some line breaks and tries.
A little bit
of
a Sean Lane to his game, isn't there? Like, obviously, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. It's not, when we ever make these comparisons, it's not a 1-to-1. He's not the next Sean Lane, but tall, rangy back row with some real heady line running. It can't help but really see that similarity there. And he's
awkward to tackle.
Yeah, he is very awkward. He always, falls forwards, almost always falls forwards, and he's just got a knack of breaking the line. So he's had a great year. A player that I thought has really built nicely, Craig. And the expectations were pretty high on him because he's a 2nd-year player. He's probably easily the most experienced player in the spine. But Caleb Leota'a has been really good in the last few weeks. He was never bad at any point this year. He was never bad, but he sort of just quietly went about his business. And I think he's been really in rhythm, in stride the last couple of games. And you've seen the difference in the team with him, really helming the squad with the 7 on his back as opposed to taking a more quiet approach. So really good to see Caleb in full form as we hit the finals. But yeah.
He's outside of the Eels. He's played at representative level, hasn't he? Like for New South Wales.
I believe so.
Or it might be, is it in rugby union? I know he's played like representative level.
He's played City Country. He's played City Country for sure.
That might be where I've grabbed that from, is the City Country. But he's obviously been someone that selectors outside of the Eels system have noted.
Yes.
So that should be a pointer to his what he can bring to the team.
Yeah, it's not just internal praise. There's also external consideration there.
Yeah, and Tyson Pulietu, for him to keep someone like Khan Jackson out of the starting lineup, it just tells you how well he's going as well. Because when Khan's playing on an edge, he's a difficult customer, and he's spent a bit of time on that. Just getting this right, the left side,
left edge,
I think with Jake occupying the
right edge,
the right, yeah. So again, they're bringing the impact from the bench with the likes of Jackson, Suoli'i, Tauloa, and O'Connor. So it's what you get given from the bench can go so far to determining a game, because if you don't have the quality on the bench, you lose that momentum. And whilst the coach might be picking the players that are the starting lineup, and they might get a lot of the attention, if you don't bring that from the bench when those rotations start, well, the whole game can fall apart. And in fact, with the Eels in the first few rounds at the NRL level, it was arguable that we were getting better service from the players coming on off the interchange than we were with the starters. So I'll be keen to see how it goes this week, because I think the bench and keeping that momentum going has been also critical for the Eels this season. I'm going to back a win here, John, because that's what I'm doing. I'm always going to do that with our teams. When we have a game that I think is going to be a closer affair, I might say, well, look, it's going to be a close one. I'm going to be content with a win by any margin, which is always going to be true. But I'll have a quiet confidence about this, even with a couple of players out.
Hayden Bell in, home game at Ringrose. I'd like to think our boys can get the job done.
Yeah, absolutely. So, John, we now come to the last game, which is, of course, the SG Ball. And you're talking about a couple of players out. Well, it's not restricted to the other grades. It's hit the SG Ball.
Man, a rough couple of weeks for the Ball, and they've actually done a great job navigating these injuries, Craig. We spoke about our thoughts and prayers going out to Ollie Walker the other week, who had a terrible knee injury. But they also lost Lincoln Fletcher and Samuel Polly in the same time frame. So it's been tough. They've had their resources stretched, and they come into this one. I was just looking at the ladder. I was a bit confused. The ladder says they're fourth, but I believe that Manly haven't had a win applied to their record. It looks like Manly's only got 8 games played, like including buys. So that's why the Eels play the Bulldogs and not the Rabbitohs in the upper bracket. So Eels fifth, I assume, taking on the Bulldogs in 8th. It's 11:30am kickoff at Ringrose. Eels coming off a couple of really good wins in the regulation season to close it out. After they had a draw and a loss, so they sort of stumbled for a little bit there. And in this one here, you've got Riley Davis at fullback. He's technically the second or backup fullback, Craig, but he's been very impressive whenever given the opportunity. First year actually ball player here, and he's done so well. Speaking of coming in with your opportunity, it's Samuel Sorovi on the right wing. He's been fantastic since coming in late in the season, and really just an incredible athlete down that right wing with some phenomenal finishes. Cyrus Bloomfield's been awesome on the left wing with the very stable and steady centre pairing of Nathan Howlett and Lachlan Vella for the Eels this week. You got Cam Bamblett pushing into that frontline playmaking role for the second week running, because there is no Lincoln Fletcher. He'll partner Talon Rosati, who has the 7 on his back as the primary playmaker. And I thought Talon was excellent last week, Craig. I think that was an important game for him as the primary signal caller for the Eels there. In the front row, it's Steve Nunn, Jiro Trey Stewart, and Ryder Talangi, 8, 9, and 10. We've got the edge pairing of Sterling Faamui and Christopher Petrus, with Jackson Coyner locking out the scrum. It's an excellent forward pack there on the bench. Michael Now was a late inclusion last week. He was one of those players we didn't really consider who played on the edge, but he's back from a suspension as of last week, with Wesley Tongamoa, Mason Ong, and Nick Kodarak rounding out the big forwards there and the utility for Wesley. Cordell Pritchard, Kobe Raven, and Billy Farnene, the extended roster there. And the Eels taking on the Canterbury Bulldogs, as I mentioned. And this one is a rerun for them? Yeah, they made yeah, this is another one where it's a rerun. So, it's funny how the seedings are shaking out this year. There's been a lot of, you don't see it too often, but it's running all over the place here. If you have a back-to-back or 1 week separating all the matchups of the Parramatta here, except for the Harold Matts, because they got the Canberra Raiders, but otherwise Central Coast Roosters for the Fiola, and then Dogs for the Gale and Ball. So there's a lot of a big sense of familiarity with the opposition in the Parramatta Eels this week.
Yeah, and it does work out quite well for both the Eels and the Bulldogs that they could have those teams all at the same ground together. So, look, John, again, this was quite a strong victory last week.
Yeah,
with the Eels. It was
31-6.
Why shouldn't it be? Because you look at that lineup.
Even with the players they're missing, it's still that deep and that strong. Yeah, I know.
But 31-6, and again, I thought that it was a scoreline which crazily flattered the Bulldogs. The Eels were always in control in that game. If anything, maybe they might have left a try or two out there, but that's rugby league, I guess. That what you had to look at is that the Eels lost a key player in Lincoln Fletcher, and so what do? Well, you know what? Here's Riley Davis, who we can't fit in the team at the moment and has been outstanding whenever he plays. I will just move him to fullback. We'll put Cameron Bamblett into the halves because he can play just as well in the halves as he does at fullback. And Talon Rosati, we'll just switch him from 5'8" to halfback, and there you go. We've got it all covered. It just ended up being like it was no big deal with losing the captain and halfback. And as we expected, both Bamblett and Davis were outstanding in those changes. And then, as you said, it was an important game for Talon to stand up, and he did that. So, yeah.
And the other factor too, you lose maybe the finest goal kicking boot in the competition in Lincoln Fletcher, and then Cyrus Bloomfield steps up and goes 5 from 5, and I think he's only missed a couple all year working in relief for Fletcher. So that is an extreme privilege to have two such capable goal kickers, because that's been one of the talking points in the NRL, hasn't it, Craig?
Well, there were some booming conversions from the sideline in that game. So it wasn't like he was presented with all of those goals from in front of the posts. He's got a boot on him, John.
Jesus, been good to see his growth this year too, Craig. He's been a plus athlete for his entire run through the junior reps, and it just feels like this year he's really settled into left wing, and like he's starting to read that game and make these plays, whether it's intercepts or finishing or defense, that you want to see from a winger at that point in their development. So really pleased.
Wasn't it interesting because his first year in Harold Matts, boom, like just get the ball into this bloke's hands.
He's bigger and better than everyone else.
Let him decimate the defence. Then we go into the following year, his second year in the same grade, and it just wasn't happening for Cyrus last year. For whatever reason, it just wasn't happening in the same way. We had positional change of like fullback. I think he spent time
to wing
and wing.
Yeah.
Right. And then this year, it's just he's on the wing. It's his first year in SG ball, and it's not that he's had some big moments, especially with the intercepts where he's gone a long distance. But it's been that he's done the little things well, where you see that progression of him as a player. Yep. So a lot to like. And again, a reminder that that's his junior year in the SG Ball. But what about Sarovi?
Yeah, out of nowhere. We'd actually heard a little bit about Samuela, just on live streams and talking to people around the fields, and we're sort of like waiting to see where he'd fit in, because you had a guy, Larima Rokasuka is not chump change. And I think Larima must be, I think he's nicked up, but, that's a phenomenal athlete in his own right there, Larima. And Sarovi comes in to replace him late in the season. And it's almost like there's two of them there. I guess it's like, I'm seeing double, because they're both just incredible athletes on that right wing. Some genuinely spectacular finishes. And
yeah, we're talking about
like
some of the best that you'd see in the NRL, but being done at SG Ball level, where the entire body
it's like
is
he's got
out
those
line.
Roo shoes, like the ones that make you jump 2 meters in the air, and he's just flying into the corner with like three guys trying to push him out, getting the ball down. So yeah, he's been a great introduction for the team. And again, there's been some adversity for this team. As good as it's been in terms of pure talent, they had a couple of tough losses. The South Sydney Rabbitohs, who are one of the other heavy favourites, or genuine premiership favourites here, they finished on top of the ladder. Half a win ahead of the Eels. No, it was 1 win ahead of the Eels in the end, because they got a draw of their own. Gave them a bit of a dusting up about a month ago, and the Eels picked themselves up, and they've had some terrible injury luck. They're missing some key players, and they could have easily faded away, and instead they've dug their heels in. So this is a team. At one point after that South Sydney game, Craig, I was a little bit concerned as to which way the season was going to go, because it was a tough loss. Like, there was no way to spin it other than that. It was ugly. But
look, here's a quick stat, John. They conceded 44 points in that loss to South, and since then, across the next 3 games, have only conceded a grand total of 18 points.
Yeah.
So they've gone from conceding 44 in one game to an average of 6 points per game since then. So even though it's different teams, they've addressed something that was a concern in that game. Now, whether that was, I don't think that was, like, you could point at that and go, oh, the defence is wrong. Defence is an attitude. So I'd suggest that there was something not quite gelling as far as attitude was concerned. That loss came on the back of a last-minute draw against the Steelers. And that last-minute draw ended up costing them a top 4 placing in this grade. So this is why we talk about
your margin of error.
Any loss create, like, it makes that margin of error
complicated scenarios very quickly. And one of my favorite, it's a sporting truism as much as it is a rugby league truism, Craig, and it's something that we talk about in the podcast every now and then, but it feels like it's more true for junior reps than it is for any other grade or grades, is that you learn more from a loss than you do from a win. And I think we saw a lot about what this team is made of after they lost the Rabbitohs, and then chose not to spiral into a run of defeats between their bad form, small run of bad form, and then all the injuries. So even with everyone they're missing, Craig, this is still a premiership contender. And that is a wild statement to say, like, in the context of who they're missing. But again, it speaks so well to the players that have come in Riley Davis, in the players that have stepped up, like Talon Rosati, in the young players that are growing, like Cyrus Bloomfield, alongside, all their genuine senior stars like Cam Bambut and Chris Petrus and Jackson Coyner, Ryder Talangi, like all these guys. Despite all the adversity, despite all the players missing, this is still a fantastic team.
What about the unsung centres there, John? Because we spoke about the work that's being done by the wingers, but work happens on the inside of them, and so to have Howlett and Vella playing as they had been, and let's not forget as well with Vella that he was a city representative. Before, I think at under 16s, and then had a nasty
miserable run of injuries.
Nasty run of injuries. He's finally getting consistent game time now, and has consolidated that centre spot, made it his own. But in just praising the back line there, let's just read through this pack again. Nunn, Stewart, Talangi, Falmui, Petrus, Coyner. Like, that is a quality pack, John. and as you said, even with missing Polly, it's like, okay, no problem. I think Chris Petrus, was he out last week?
That's good.
I think he might have been out. Anyway, you've got Faumui and Petrus there to play in the second row. Like, they don't skip a beat with naming blokes who would probably.
Petrus was out. That's a good memory there.
Yeah. So I had a feeling he was out. So yeah, we just bring Petrus back in because he was out injured last. Or was he suspended? Might have been suspended.
Might have been suspended.
Yeah. So yeah, and then when you talk about, I spoke before with the Mats about the bench. Naua, come on, Tongamoa, Ong, Kotarek.
Yep.
Like, any of those blokes could jump in and be starters. Like Kotarek, he filled in on an edge last week, and he's a middle forward. Again, the Eels didn't skip a beat. So the depth of talent.
The composition of the squad is really interesting too, Craig, because it is almost the ideal blend of Parramatta District juniors with really, really good external recruitment. Like, you look at the guys there, the guys that are available this week. You know, in terms of local district, I believe it's Davis, Sorovi, Howlett, Vella, Bloomfield, Rosati, Stewart, Talangi, Naua, Tongamoa, Ong are all Harold Mats through juniors. And then you've got guys, as we mentioned there, going back through, Bambut, who was Penrith District, which was a great pickup by the recruitment. Nunn, who comes across from New Zealand, has been obviously fantastic. Faumui comes from by way of West this year, another great pickup. Petrus was South and Penrith, came to us. And then Jackson Coyner, Australian schoolboy, brought to us by Brisbane. That was a big one. And then Kodak, who you mentioned, I think it was with the Bears, right, Craig?
Yeah,
so
I believe it was the Bears, yeah.
It's a ton of local district juniors, but also some really clever recruitment externally. And again, this is when we talk about the whole sort of whole body work with recruitment for the Eels. Is you can absolutely be frustrated at the highest levels about us not being able to get the big deal done at the highest end, but that's also got to be in consideration from some of the stuff down here. I'm not saying it completely patches over everything, but there is some great work being done here in terms of.
Oh yeah, not only are they finding players who maybe weren't on the radar for other clubs, they're also finding players who were rejected by other clubs, and then they are also being able to recruit a blue chip like Coyner, who was part of the Broncos pathways and made the decision to come to Parramatta for his future. And that says a lot about selling the Eels system to one of the most touted young players in Australia.
And he's lived up to the hype so far. So, like, he's been very, very good.
Yep. So, anyway, I think we're with them playing the same opponent this week. We're going to go in with a level of confidence.
Jump Street 22, baby. Just do the same thing.
That's it. And look, that just about brings this preview podcast to an end. A reminder that you'll catch our live blogs from Ringrose Park on Saturday. 4 of them, count them, 4 matches in a row from the same venue. Can the devices last? And the live blog will be the big question. Really looking forward to being out there to get the atmosphere of these junior rep final series, as well as it's nothing beats being at the venue. I thoroughly enjoy being able to get to especially the Eels home grounds.
It's been a while since you've gone to the old Snoppy ground at Ringrose too.
Oh yeah, I mean that was a bit of a. Was it always a happy hunting ground? It was a bit of a mixed bag when the Eels were playing as the Winty feeder team. We had some great success there for a number of years, and then a few tough times as well. But yes, the Wenty is a huge part of the Parramatta Junior Rugby League, and to have a great junior level venue like Ringrose Park means that when the New South Wales Rugby League is looking for venues for finals football, straight away there can be grounds within the Parramatta district that are offered up as venues. And as we see, we've got Ringrose Park this week, and we've got the Eric Tweedale Stadium available next week. So thank you to everyone listening. For those involved with the junior reps, any staff, players, families that are listening, we wish you all the best. We have great confidence in what you can achieve this week. If you see us out at the ground on Saturday, come over, say g'day. We love to meet people. We love to meet our listeners, and we also, like the players and staff, know that they've got our support. Again, thank you to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and of course the home of the Eels, the great benefactor of Junior Rugby League in the Parramatta District, Parramatta Leagues Club. John, there's only one thing left to say. Go you mighty Eels, Para proud.